The Secrets of Star Trek is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the original series episode, Arena. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel is Jimmy Akin. Hi, Jimmy.
Vasquez rocks. Vasquez rocks. Vasquez rocks. Vasquez rocks.
Yes, we'll explain that in a minute. Folks, remember to like The Secrets of Star Trek on Facebook at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Retweet us on Twitter, where we're at SQPN, and leave us comments wherever you find us online. We love to hear from you. I want to tell you about another show on the network you are sure to enjoy called Catholics of Oz. You can find that wherever fine podcasts are found, or at
Follow the yellow brick road.
not that Oz. The one on the other side of the planet from where we're sitting. You can find that at sqpn.com/OZ, Oz. So I want to start our discussion today with some sad news that we should bring up, which is that the Star Trek community has lost Nichelle Nichols, the original Uhura from Star Trek, the original series. She passed away recently, as you're hearing this a few weeks ago, and she'd been ill for quite a while and had been in declining health. So it wasn't surprising. I mean, all of these actors are now, the surviving ones are all elderly now anyway from the original series. But quite a loss.
The only ones we have left are William Shatner,
yep,
and George Takei,
yep,
and Walter Koenig.
Yep, yeah, I think that's right. They're all, the rest have all passed. So, Shatner's survival. Yeah, I mean, Shatner is 90 now, I think, if I remember correctly.
I think George Takei is determined to outlive him, though.
Yes, I think so. They have a famous animosity for one another. But Nichelle Nichols, as we all know, was a groundbreaking actress at the time when Star Trek came out. For her to be an officer on the bridge of a ship was seen to be a big deal, even though, as communications officer, it may not have been the most glamorous of roles. She had a major role in the story in the show. There's a famous.
She was a major presence. She also finally, in the animated series, got to take command of the Enterprise, which was great.
Right. We talked about that one. Yeah, that was fantastic. There's a couple famous stories about her. One of them involves, like, when she was first offered the role, she wasn't going to take it. She didn't want to do the show for various reasons, and she ended up talking to Martin Luther King Jr., who encouraged her to do this role, to be a visible presence,
to stay in the role.
To stay,
because she'd already, after she'd accepted it, she'd been on it for a season and was thinking about quitting. And he talked to her and said, "No, you're showing that we can do this and we can be accepted in the future. So you need to stay and do it." And she did.
Yeah, thank you for correcting that. Yeah, that's what it was. She wasn't sure whether she wanted to stay because she felt like she wasn't getting enough to do. Like she wasn't making
Tasha
enough.
Yar syndrome.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I'm glad she did, because she's been a wonderful presence in Star Trek ever since. And as that part of that advocacy role, she later on was known for being an advocate for NASA, for women to be involved in space and in science, and apparently made a big difference. A lot of women who are in those fields now attributed their going into those fields partly to Nichelle Nichols' influence. So.
Yeah, I remember during the space shuttle program, they had Nichelle Nichols as one of their spokespeople, and she was, urging people to get involved and potentially consider this as a career.
Yeah. So may she rest in peace and
Amen.
Enjoy the beatific vision, we hope. All right, so let's talk about an episode in which Nichelle Nichols appeared. We're going to be talking about Arena. This is the famous introduction of the Gorn into Star Trek, and that's become even more important with the Strange New Worlds bringing back the Gorn as a major antagonist. So before we talk about this episode, Jimmy, can you give us a recap of what happens?
This week, the Enterprise arrives at a remote outpost on Cestus 3 at the invitation of Commodore Travers, who asks them to bring down their tactical men to help him consider a special problem. But when they beam down, they find the outpost was decimated days ago. All but one of the colonists has been killed, and they were led into a trap with false radio messages. The alien ship that did the devastating then attacks the Enterprise, stranding Kirk and his party on the ground. Eventually, Kirk's party uses a grenade launcher to attack the unseen aliens on the surface, and the alien ship beams up its people and leaves. This lets Sulu beam up Kirk, and they go in chase of the alien vessel. Kirk is convinced that this was a prelude to an invasion, and like Captain Ahab, he is determined to destroy the alien ship and prevent it from reaching home. As the Enterprise and the aliens are passing a star system, they are scanned from that system and then frozen in space. The new aliens introduce themselves as the Metrons, and they say both ships have intruded on their space and are uncivilized aggressors. They announce that there will be a trial by champion to settle the dispute. Kirk and the captain of the other ship are transported to an asteroid to settle the quarrel. Whoever kills the other wins, and their ship will be allowed to go free, but the ship of the loser will be destroyed. At this point, halfway through the episode, we finally see the alien captain, and he's a lizard man known as a Gorn. Kirk and the Gorn attack each other a bunch. Kirk is weaker than the Gorn, but faster and more agile. The Gorn captain reveals that from the Gorn perspective, the Cestus 3 outpost was an invasion of Gorn space. And so their motives in destroying the colony were essentially the same as Kirk's motives to kill the Gorn ship and thwart an invasion that he perceived. Kirk is losing to the Gorn captain, and he knows he has limited time left, but he's able to use mineral deposits he finds on the asteroid to make a primitive cannon out of bamboo. He fashions gunpowder and uses enormous diamonds as projectiles. He shoots the Gorn, gravely wounding him, but he refuses to kill him. One of the Metrons then appears to Kirk, who says that he showed the advanced trait of mercy, and maybe in a few thousand years they can make a treaty with the Federation. But, he says, don't call us, we'll call you when you're ready. And afterwards, Kirk is transported back to the Enterprise, which is itself thrown 500 parsecs across the galaxy in a show of Metron power. The end.
It's 1,500 light years. That's quite a ways, as we've discovered with Voyager. Yeah. So the interesting aspect of this, just in my memory of this, I hadn't seen this in a long time. I remember seeing this as a kid and being freaked out by the Gorn, and that probably affected my ability to watch this again.
It's amazing how much the Gorn is a visual is visually impressive in this episode. I mean, the makeup looks, hokey today, but it's still, for the time, it's really impressive, and it distorts your memory of this. That's why I noted it's not until halfway through this thing that we even see the Gorn. My memory of this is, okay, there's a little scene at Cestus 3 in the beginning, and then we get to the asteroid. And it's like, no, half of the runtime is before we get to the asteroid.
I was kind of surprised by that myself. I was like, wow, there's a lot of story here before we ever even see the Gorn. But yeah, it just makes such an impression, or it made such an impression the first time I saw it, that it kind of filled up my memory of the whole episode. So it was quite impressive.
They also, before we get to the asteroid, they really build Kirk up as an Ahab, where he's just like, he is gonna harpoon this white whale. He is gonna kill it before it gets back to its base. Spock is trying to talk him down off the ledge, but he is just adamant he's going to kill these aliens. And that's setting us up for the reveal that, well, the aliens thought we were invading their space.
Yep.
But before that point, it's like, these are really ruthless aliens. And then it turns out, oh, there's another perspective on this. They thought we were invading them, and so they have essentially the same motive in killing all those humans that Kirk had in wanting to kill them.
And the script itself plays on our own preconceived notions about, like, if we see, and in fact, Kirk says this in his log, his little diary that he's recording on the asteroid. We see this creature and we just assume it's a brutish creature. It's just a lizard, a reptile. But the Gorn from the very beginning show quite a bit of cleverness. I mean, they're able to fake the message from the Commodore to such a degree that it fools people who know him well.
And who know his voice, because we hear the imaginary Commodore's voice on the phone at the beginning of the episode.
Right. So they're obviously, the Gorn are trying to either kill or capture the Starfleet, tactical team that's aboard the Enterprise, either to capture them to learn more about Starfleet's tactics, or to kill them so that it's easier to destroy the Enterprise. Maybe both. So that's possible. So it's really interesting to see how they set up the Gorn as being quite clever and capable from the start.
The Gorn, once they get to the asteroid, the Gorn is also, even though he's slower than Kirk, he's acting smarter than Kirk for a lot of it. I mean, you can tell that more time goes by than what we actually see, because the Gorn has built traps for Kirk.
Yeah.
Kirk has just been running around looking at stuff and trying to evade the Gorn, and the Gorn is using that time to make an obsidian knife so he can stab Kirk with it. And he's made a trap with like vines for ropes and rocks for weights that Kirk runs into and gets tangled up and caught. The Gorn captain has really been efficiently using his time, whereas Kirk is just running around like not knowing what he's doing. And he keeps going, the Metrons, and he keeps everyone pronounces it Metron, even though the Metrons pronounce it Metron.
Yeah.
And in Greek, it would be pronounced metron, because that's an omicron, not an omega.
Right.
The word metron means measure in Greek.
Mm-hmm.
And the Metrons are kind of taking the measure of the humans and the Gorns. But Kirk is like, what the Metron said was, there are things on this asteroid that will let you make weapons. But Kirk is like, he said there's going to be a weapon. Where's the weapon? Where's the weapon? Where's the weapon? It's like, no. He said you can make one. Start looking for weapon components.
Yes, the Gorn was apparently listening, but Kirk was not. And if the Gorn was not comically slow moving, Kirk would be totally toast through this. I mean, it just has to be like almost like I said, comically slow moving. I mean, maybe it was really cold on this planet,
but very powerful.
Yes,
he's clearly much stronger than Kirk. At one point, Kirk smashes him with a boulder from the top of Vasquez Rocks, which is a very common land formation. It's a land formation here in California, outside of LA, that is very commonly used as a filming location. They used it a bunch in early Star Trek. It's been in a bunch of other stuff. It has the pointy rocks.
Yeah.
So when you see the slanted pointy rock formation, that's Vasquez Rocks. And Kirk is up on top of it at one point, and he lobs this boulder that hits the Gorn captain dead on and smashes him to the ground. The Gorn captain had a boulder fall on him from 100 feet in the air, and he gets up.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, this guy is tough.
Yeah, they're hard to kill. So let's go back to the beginning. This is an interesting scene in the transporter room at the very beginning where they're about to beam down. And there's a funny line that McCoy and Spock have, a little exchange they have. McCoy and Kirk are salivating at the Commodore's legendary hospitality and the meal that they are anticipating they're about to have. And Spock accuses McCoy of being a sensualist. And McCoy says, "You bet I am."
Actually, he says, "You bet your pointed ears I am."
That's what it was, yeah. And McCoy also says, "Oh, they've been eating reconstituted meals." I'm like, what happened to the chef who was making turkey dinners not long ago? So a little
Maybe
inconsistency.
Charlie X sealed his mouth or something.
Yeah, right. So after they beam down, we have this very interesting matte painting of the destroyed colony, which I saw, and maybe you saw too, the remastered special effects that they have now. But I remember, and I saw some pictures of the originals. Yeah, and they didn't look half bad. They were actually pretty good even back then.
Mm-hmm.
For the time.
They have a practical fort that they've redressed with some science fiction signs that say life support level D and stuff like that. But at the time, you could see other stuff in the background that they used a matte painting to get out of the shot.
Right. And that's when they come under attack from the Gorn using mortars of some sort. And the Enterprise also comes under attack, and so it can't beam them up.
Also, so there are a bunch of firsts in this episode. This is the first episode to establish Warp 6 as their normal cruising speed, and everyone is like getting nervous when they go to Warp 7, and they're even more nervous when they go to Warp 8. This is the first episode to refer to Starfleet. This is the first episode to name the Federation. And the introduction of Starfleet is notable. Previously, they had called it the United Earth Space Probe Agency, or USPA. And they actually used the word USPA on screen. But now it's called Starfleet. This also is, they've previously used the phasers, but this is the first time they use photon torpedoes. So this episode introduces photon torpedoes. And it is the first episode to establish that force shields block transporters, so that you can't beam up when the shields are up. And so this is the first to establish that.
Yeah, there's a lot that this episode really kind of sets in stone for the next 60 years of Star Trek, and it's kind of interesting. Yeah.
On the other hand, there are things it comes up with that are never used again. Like at one point when they're on the planet and the Gorn are shelling them with some kind of laser weapon, they lock onto Spock's tricorder and cause it to explode. And he just like pitches his tricorder away just in time as it's overloading. And to me, that's a little bit like, they've locked onto my iPhone and are going to make it explode. So okay. I didn't know it was designed to do that.
I suppose if you fiddle with the battery, a battery has got a lot of potential energy. So
it is a little Mr. Robot. Yeah. They also have a weapon that we never see again, which is a grenade launcher.
Yeah.
They've got these little blue billiard balls that they put in a grenade launcher, and it launches them. And they're really
powerful,
deadly, really powerful.
I called it the mega mortar in my notes because that thing is a huge mortar.
Yeah. It occurs to me that and I don't know if this is intentional, but the two halves of the episode mirror each other in a couple of interesting ways. In both, the ultimate solution to the immediate problem is Kirk uses a grenade launcher. He uses on Cestus 3. He uses the Starfleet grenade launcher to shell the Gorn, and that's what causes them to leave, which is the immediate problem that needs to be solved so they can beam up to the ship. And then in part 2, he builds a grenade launcher. They call it a cannon, but it's a short bamboo tube. He puts giant diamonds in it, and he shoots them at the Gorn. And so you have the same solution for the immediate problem in both. What's different is who's the perceived invader. In part 1, when Kirk uses the grenade launcher, he perceives the Gorn as the invaders of Cestus 3. But then at the end of the second half of the show, based on what his conversation with the Gorn captain, he's learned the Gorn perceived the humans as the invaders of Cestus 3. And it's like, wow, there's this interesting symmetry here between these two halves of this episode.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting that, yes, the Gorn, the perception of who the invader is different, but the Gorn are the ones who slaughtered everyone.
And Kirk was going to do that too. He was going to kill everyone on that alien ship without even finding anything out about the alien ship. Maybe it's the Enterprise D, it's the Gorn Enterprise D, and it's got little kids on it.
It's possible, I guess. Yeah. It is kind of weird that Starfleet would put a colony out here and know virtually nothing about the area.
Yeah.
They say that there's virtually nothing known about this area of space. Well, maybe you should have done some more, surveying.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to, before we move away from the battle on Cestus 3, is they have this several parts of the scene where first Kirk and then Spock have to run zigzag through the explosions. I think Shatner looks a little more athletic doing it than, or at least Shatner's double, than Nimoy or his double do. But in any case, Shatner, Nimoy, and
DeForest Kelly,
all suffered lifelong tinnitus from these explosions. Shatner, very bad tinnitus, apparently. if you get tinnitus, it's a bad condition. It's drive you half mad sometimes, I think.
They all got permanent nerve damage in their ears because of the mistimed explosions in this episode.
There were some pretty close explosions to them. The other thing I thought was notable here was how Kirk's number one priority is protect the ship. He orders Sulu to warp out of orbit, get the ship away, leave us behind. Your number one priority is protect the ship, which, it makes sense. You got 400 people on a ship, and the ship is very important to the security of the Federation versus, a few people on the surface. So I get it, but it kind of extends this idea of how Kirk has this relationship to the Enterprise that supersedes everything in some stories.
Mm-hmm.
So they do rescue one surviving colonist.
And I wanted to point out that syncs up with what they've established in Strange New Worlds, that the Gorn do, as part of their ritual culture, leave one survivor when they attack something.
Right.
And that's this guy that we meet and who gets a few lines. And he's the designated survivor, and they killed everybody else.
Right. And he's kind of, hysterical in sickbay, talking about the brutality and the seeming unprovoked nature of the attack, which is something that sort of fuels Kirk's Ahab-like drive to take revenge on them. Now, we do have a bit of a paradox here, as people have pointed out before, which is that Spock has seen the Gorn. In fact, we've seen him do battle with young Gorn on the Enterprise, or not on the Enterprise itself, but when he was under Captain Pike's command, and yet never says anything about them in this episode, having seen them before, which is obviously because this was written before. But it's kind of funny that they've made this, the writers of the modern Star Trek have made this paradox and don't seem all that concerned about it, which doesn't
probably
bother me
just establish that at some point Spock is forbidden to ever refer to those events, like his sister, for reasons.
Right, and we've deleted all of the records of Discovery, etc. Yeah. So, like you said, Kirk concludes that this is a prelude to invasion, an attempt to destroy the Enterprise, because it's the only Federation ship in the area, which sounds like the Starfleet's pretty thinly spread.
Before.
Yeah. But Spock has the logical conclusion that there could be other reasons for this happening, and he doesn't push too hard, though. I think he's kind of learned some that you've got to be judicious with Kirk when he's like this. I think. But sort of like in the Balance of Terror episode, they conclude that if they can destroy the enemy vessel before it gets home, they won't dare to invade because they won't know the Federation's strength. And like I said, that's very similar to Balance of Terror with the Romulans. So I thought that was interesting. They went back to that again. And Spock, like I said, was wondering. He comes back with this, wonders, is it enough to just pursue the ship? Do we have to destroy it? And Kirk's like, nope. If they go unpunished, they'll be back. And again, making a lot of conclusions about an alien species you know nothing about in this case.
Yeah, it would have benefited from more research and so forth. But, this episode is called Arena, so we've got to get Kirk and that Gorn captain into an arena. I
know, we've already halfway through the episode and we haven't gotten them there yet.
Yeah. Incidentally, the title of the planet, or the name of the planet they go to, Cestus 3, is itself foreshadowing for an arena, because a cestus was a kind of boxing glove that Roman gladiators would use. Only it's not like a modern boxing glove. Modern boxing gloves are made of padding. Ancient boxing gloves are made of wood.
I bet those were short boxing matches.
Strap them onto your hands. Yeah.
Nice. Ouch. So this is the point in the story with the chase, the big chase, where the Metrons stop them dead in space and scans them.
Okay, let's talk about the Metrons for a second.
Yes.
They're sitting out here in space. They are apparently really xenophobic. They don't want people flying through their space. And they grab these two ships and put them in this trial by champion situation where they say there will be stuff on the planet you can use to make weapons to kill each other, since that appears to be your intent.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, there's just so much here. If you're really this xenophobic, not attracting their attention could have been an option. Let them just fly through your space. It's apparently not very big, because they're heading back for their own Gorn space. So just let them fly back to Gorn space. Let the Enterprise chase them. Let them kill each other or not, however they want. Why are you grabbing them and putting them in a trial by champion situation?
I also thought it was weird that the Metron complaint is, you've brought your savagery and your fighting to our space, so now we're going to make you fight. Wait a minute. Maybe don't let them fight.
Let them fight. It's like, what's going on here?
Right, and the whoever loses between the two captains, their ship gets destroyed.
Everybody dies. Yeah, it's like, wait a minute, guys. We built this ship as a group. We're here as a group. If I'm going to die, I want to be able to use everything we've got in this fight, and that includes me.
Yeah.
Why are you arbitrarily grabbing these two guys and letting everybody else's life or death be decided by them?
Yeah.
This was a collective enterprise. It should be a collective enterprise. Let us do it as a collective enterprise. Also, if by isolating these two champions away from all of their technology, you're changing the strategic balance of power.
Yeah.
We built weapons for a reason. It was to compensate for our own. It was to improve upon our own limitations. And so, we made a warship. Let us use our warship in fighting our war.
Yeah, the Metron motivation for doing this sort of thing is very unclear and sort of contradictory. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So they get beamed to this asteroid or planet, and Kirk has, we hear him in a voiceover talk about his instinctive revulsion toward reptiles, and he needs to remember it's not just a creature, but a dangerously clever opponent, a captain of his own starship, and then immediately forgets.
Yeah, and this is also it's the 1960s, but it's also kind of speciesist.
Yeah.
If you've seen enough strange aliens already, this is just another one.
Yeah.
I'm just a 21st century science fiction fan, and I'm going, oh, cool, it's a Gorn. Right. I'm not revolted by it.
Yeah.
But they really give us lots of reaction shots of Nichelle once they get it on the phone towards the end of the episode. Once the Metrons start live streaming what's happening in the fight to the Enterprise, because your captain's about to lose, so we'll let you watch his agonizing death. They have all these reaction shots, at least 3, of Nichelle Nichols being revulsed by the sight of the Gorn on the screen. And it's like, really? It's just a lizard man. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah. He's not that ugly. But yeah, I guess you could be scared by just if you have a snake phobia or something, I guess. In any case,
it's not a snake, it's a lizard.
I know.
We were biologically programmed to be hesitant around snakes, but lizards are just, there's that lizard again. Big deal.
You'd be surprised how many people don't make a distinction between them.
Okay.
So one way that the Gorn is smarter than Kirk is that Kirk doesn't the Metrons gave them each a translator/recorder. And so Kirk's like, oh, cool, I can record my deepest, innermost thoughts into this. And dude, you're transmitting. The Gorn can hear everything you're saying, and is thus going to be able to use that against you in the fight.
Yeah, also, and what Kirk should have done is used it to feed disinformation to the Gorn.
Right.
But and this is another weird aspect of the Gorn thing, of the Metron thing, because they say they're giving them these recorder translators to preserve a record of this so that other people in the future can be deterred from coming into their space, I guess.
Yeah.
But why does it have a party line on it?
Right.
You know, and if I'm the human captain, I'm not going to be running around confessing to this thing. I'm going to be building weapons.
Well, right. And if your ship is going to be destroyed, how is this record going to go back to your people to deter them?
It doesn't make any sense. But the Gorn does keep his mouth shut on the party line and just listen to Kirk and find out what's going on with Kirk, who's just blabbing everything that happens like a silly monkey boy.
You're right.
And I also find it interesting, this is a dialogue flaw, once the Gorn finally starts talking to Kirk, he calls him an Earthling. Earth has not been mentioned.
Yeah.
How does he know to call him an Earthling?
Well, I mean, they call Cestus 3 an Earth colony, so there's
maybe okay.
Earth is often the substitute for Federation in this, and they obviously learned enough about the Commodore at the beginning to be able to. So they must have learned something about them.
That's fine too.
Yeah.
Which only brings up the fact the Metrons scanned them and talked about all your history of barbarism that we learned from your computer banks. Didn't you see the other stuff too besides the violence?
Yeah, right. These Metrons seemed obsessed with violence, even though they claim to eschew it. So.
Yeah, it's like we had a World War III, and then we built a starfaring civilization that is a utopia.
Predicated on peace.
Yeah.
Yep. So the human... Yeah.
But I was going to say, so towards the end, when the Gorn is going, I'm getting tired of this, why don't you just stay put and I'll come kill you quickly? Kirk has just been talking to his device saying, I'm so tired. I don't have much longer. I'm just running out of energy, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, this is biologically wrong. Humans have slow twitch muscle fibers. There are two major kinds of muscle fibers, slow twitch and fast twitch. Humans have lots of slow twitch. And what that means is we're not good at sprinting. Lions can totally generate faster bursts of speed than humans can because lions have more fast twitch muscles in their legs, muscle fibers. Humans have slow twitch ones. What that means is we can't run as fast, but we can run way longer. Human can outrun a lion in distance. The lion will get tired, and humans can just keep jogging all day. In fact, this was in the Paleolithic period, a common hunting technique. You find the traces of some animal and you just start following it. And even if the animal runs away, you just keep following it because the animal is designed for sprinting, not for marathons. And eventually the animal will get tired and you can kill it and eat it. So this is a known human hunting technique. If the Gorn is slow and muscle bound compared to Kirk should be able to outlast the Gorn.
Yeah, although Kirk is injured by this point, with the Gorn boulder trap that landed on Kirk and injured his leg, so that could sap some of his endurance.
But he's also dropped a boulder on the Gorn. Yeah,
but the Gorn shrugged it off. So I don't know if it injured him. So the human advantage in evolution was our development of tools, right? That should be what Kirk's advantage over the Gorn. And it isn't for most of this. Eventually, Kirk figures out how to make a better weapon than a obsidian knife, which looks like what the Gorn has developed.
The Gorn also built a trap, which Kirk didn't build. But Kirk then steals the Gorn after he shoots the Gorn. He steals the Gorn's obsidian knife and is going to use, because he hasn't built an obsidian knife,
right?
and he's going to use it to cut the Gorn's throat, and that's when he decides that I'm not going to kill him.
Right. And this is about the after Kirk runs into the very obvious snare trap.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna die, but again, the Gorn moves like it's in molasses, and that's what allows Kirk to escape, even hobbled as he is. And at this point, because the Metrons say, because the Enterprise crew may have feelings for the captain, they will be allowed to watch the captain die.
You may have feelings. It's like, guys, you read our email, okay?
Yeah.
You know we have feelings. You hacked the Enterprise's computers. You read everybody's hard drive. You know about humans.
And it's clear that this part, that the writers wrote this in so that we could have Spock noticing the elements that Kirk is going to need to notice and alert the audience to them, right?
Yeah.
That's what he's doing. So they notice potassium nitrate, and then Kirk has already discovered sulfur.
How do you diagnose potassium nitrate on screen? It just looks like salt.
Yeah.
How do you know that's not salt?
I mean, unless Spock is assuming that the Metrons have, like Kirk has not figured out that the Metrons have left the tools to build a weapon. I guess, yeah. But it's all laying there on the surface. He doesn't have to mine it out of the ground, so it's all there. He'll also find coal.
Man.
And he uses it all to make gunpowder, right?
Yeah, he uses it all to make gunpowder, but okay, you're not making gunpowder by taking large chunks of anthracite or coal and smashing them into smaller chunks of anthracite. It has to be powdered.
Yeah.
And he's not powdering it.
Yeah. Apparently, Mythbusters, the TV show, tested the gunpowder cannon on their show several years ago and deemed it implausible unless the bamboo on Cestus, or not Cestus 3, but on this asteroid was unusually strong. Otherwise, it would just blown it to bits.
And it does get blown to bits. I mean, it doesn't completely fragment, but it does. The one end of it is exploded. This is clearly a one-time use cannon.
Yeah.
And in the novelization of this, they do talk about the bamboo being harder than Earth bamboo.
That's good. I'm glad the author of the novelization noticed that too. The Gorn does tell Kirk, "Stop running and let me kill you," which is usually an ineffective technique. It is interesting.
That's not what we evolved to do, guy.
Yeah, right. It is interesting that Starfleet uniforms are apparently flammable because Kirk uses it as a piece of his uniform as a fuse for the cannon. That seems like a bad idea. Your uniform should not be flammable. It's McCoy who actually worries, as watching this, that as he hears the Gorn captain talking, he worries that it's the Federation that was in the wrong because they settled in Gorn territory. So that's kind of interesting that was McCoy.
And it makes sense for it to be McCoy because he's the bleeding heart. And so he could be a bleeding heart for the Gorn once he understands their perspective. So I thought that was interesting too, and I liked it because it reinforces that McCoy is a man of conscience who feels his way through these things.
Right. And yet Spock, as a man of logic and science, also comes to similar conclusions about, maybe we should, there's an ethics in his logic about destroying your enemy and that sort of thing. So I like the fact that we have McCoy and Spock both in opposition to the captain's desire for revenge.
And Kirk is off on his own in this one. He's not supported by either of his principal officers.
Right. It's symbolized by being alone on the planet in that sense. But in the end, Kirk refuses to kill the Gorn, and Kirk demonstrates the advanced trait of mercy, as the Metron so pompously says.
Yeah, and the Metron, who looks like a teenager, but he says he's 1,500 Earth years old.
Yeah, he's a Time Lord.
Yeah, the Metron's logic at the end is like, you showed the advanced trait of mercy. It's like, okay, guys, you read our email.
Yeah,
you should know about humans have mercy.
Right.
You've learned to speak our language. You just used the word mercy. We've got that word.
Right.
Therefore, we've got that concept. And you can read our records to see how often we display it. And they apparently didn't do due diligence. But then he says, "So, do you want me to kill the Gorn ship for you?" And it's like, I just had mercy on this guy. Why are you offering to kill them all?
Right.
You're offering to do the thing that I said I'm not going to do, only you're going to do it to an entire ship.
Maybe the Metron was just double checking, make sure that Kirk wasn't trying to trick him. Oh, yeah, destroy them. No! So, in the end, Kirk is back on board the ship, and he's talking to Spock. And the Metron says, as you mentioned in your recap, that perhaps in 1,000 years, we'll be able to meet the Metrons again. That's what Kirk says. And that's 1,000 years. That's kind of the Discovery time frame. I wonder if we're going to see them again perhaps on Discovery. Although by the fourth and fifth season of Discovery, the humans have not advanced much over these ones. In fact, they've probably devolved a bit.
Yeah, and Kirk was being optimistic when he said 1,000 years because the Gorn said several thousand.
The Metron, yeah. The
Metron, yeah.
So let's talk about the Gorn in this versus Strange New Worlds. Like the Strange New World Gorn are much scarier than this one. They're not even just in appearance, but even just in behavior and implacability and deadliness. They're certainly faster. I mean, maybe this was just like an old, slow, like an elderly Gorn. And he just you happen to still be captain or something. But it's interesting to see, and I wonder, is Strange New Worlds going to not reference this episode, obviously, since it takes place later in the timeline, but whether there'll be any additional connection to this story, or we're just going to sort of rewrite the Gorn in a way like they rewrote Klingons for Discovery. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see what they do in season 2 of Strange New Worlds. The Gorn may or may not continue to be a threat. I'd kind of like them to be a threat. And so we have a problem in that this episode is the classic Star Trek plot. Of we meet something, we think it's a threat, eventually we realize it's not, and we hug it out at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, thank you. I've seen this trope a million times. But this is a fun application of it because it's an early version of it before that trope had been done to death. And in Strange New Worlds, they're using the Gorn as a series villain. And that's incompatible. They need to ramp them up as a huge, enormous threat, not just a misunderstood lizard people we can hug it out at the end with.
Yeah.
And so we've kind of got the Strange New Worlds Gorn arc not really fitting well with this episode, but I hope they keep it up. I'd rather have interesting Gorn stories in the future than just have the one Gorn story and not be able to touch it again.
Right.
And it's not dissimilar to how they've retconned other things in Star Trek. Like originally the Trills didn't look like Jadzia.
Yep.
They totally changed their visual appearance. Lots of other races have been retconned. The Borg got a major retcon between their first and second appearances because originally they are only interested in your technology, not you. And then it turns out they're majorly interested in you. So if it means for better storytelling, I don't mind retconning things.
I mean, this, of course, is the original retcon of the Klingons when they went from smooth-headed, swarthy, vaguely Middle Eastern-looking villains, like pirates.
To bumpy foreheads.
Yeah. So I'm not opposed to it. I'm kind of curious whether the current regime of Star Trek people plan on basically just rebooting what we know of the original series and just redo it.
I don't think so.
Yeah. I hope not. I'm okay with inconsistency. I mean, the first 3 seasons of the original series had plenty of inconsistencies internally. I'm okay with inconsistencies. I'd say let's just keep moving forward and tell good stories, and I'll be fine with it otherwise. So any other notes on Arena, Jimmy?
Nope.
All right. So let's wrap up things.
Oh, wait,
there.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where's my Metron translator? I don't have it here. All right. We'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the secrets of Star Trek, including Dion, Jason H., Martin G., Colleen T., and Brant T. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And we'd like to thank Victor Lambs, who edited this episode. So that's it from us. What did you think of the original series episode Arena? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek, our Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to trek@sqpn.com, or visit our Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the animated series episode, The Magics of Megas 2. Until then, Jimmy Akin, thank you for joining me in sharing the secrets of Star Trek.
Thank you, and live long and prosper.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest, and remember, we're still half savages, but there's hope.